Joined now by Mike Rogers. He is chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. What do you think of the plan?
Well, obviously I'm skeptical, but any day that we can do something to take chemical weapons off the battlefield, take them away from Assad, and or stop them from falling into the hands of Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda, it's a good day. But here's the problem with where we're at. The Syria plan has been confusing at best over the last 2 years. Last week, it was more confusing to the American people and more confusing to members of Congress about our national security interests. The president couldn't quite close that deal. So that indecisiveness, I think, gave the diplomatic advantage to the Russians. They saw it. They stepped in. This is a Russian plan for Russian interests. And we should be very, very concerned about giving the one piece.
If it has a chance to get rid of chemical weapons, do we really care that Russia got the diplomatic edge?
Well, if it were just that, that's true. But if the president believes, like I do, that a credible military force helps you get a diplomatic solution, they gave that away in this deal. I'm really concerned about that. If you believe there's broader national security interests in Syria, I know the president does. I clearly believe that. We have Al-Qaeda pooling in the West. We have Hezbollah operating there. It's a proxy fight. By the way, the Russians have been here the whole time and are complicit, in my mind, in allowing chemical weapons to be used. They got exactly what they wanted. They wanted Assad here for a year, or at least extended for a year. They got that. And there's not 1 ounce of chemical weapons in this. Remember, it's a framework. There's a lot of shoulds, not a lot of hard dates. All of this has to go to the UN. So not 1 ounce of chemical weapons came off the battlefield, but we've given up every ounce of our leverage when it comes to trying to solve the broader Syrian problem because we've taken away a credible military threat. The Russians said we maintain that right to oppose it in the National Security Council, and they've said that they would.
So I want to bring in your fellow committee member, Congressman Adam Schiff, your colleague on the Intelligence Committee, and ask you what you think of this deal. I know that you have been certainly open to trusting the Russians to bring something usable to the table.
Well, I don't know that I trust the Russians, but I think this agreement is a very positive step. And if we stepped back 6 or 9 months ago and said we'd be in a position today where Syria would sign the chemical weapons treaty, where U.S. and Russia would be on the same page in disarming under UN supervision Syria of all of its chemical weapons, without a single shot being fired, we would have said this is a phenomenal breakthrough. Now, it's been ugly getting here, and trying to disarm a dictator is always going to be an ugly process. But look, if your goal is to use military force to decide the outcome on the battlefield, and you don't mind risking entangling us in the Civil War, it's a bad deal. But if your goal is to make sure these chemical weapons are never used again, if your goal is to make sure that when the regime falls, that in that chaos, these weapons don't get in the hands of Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda, this is about as good a deal as you can get. Now, it's going to be tough. The timetable is aggressive. We can certainly expect the regime to delay and obfuscate, so it's going to be hard. But this is, I think, the best pathway we've seen in the last couple of years.
Let me ask you a two-part question. First to you, Mr. Chairman, and that is we have constant reports of Assad since this all began and since the Russians and the U.S. got together for some sort of agreement, that Assad's been moving his chemical weapons around from post to post. Is that true? And what does it tell you about their intentions?
Well, one of the things that the Russians wanted was breathing space. And this has never been about anybody. I don't believe the president wanted to get entangled into a military mess in Syria. But by having a credible military threat, it gives you leverage in negotiations. I think that's a very important distinction. And again, if chemical weapons are it, then this is a great day and everyone should high five, even though there's no agreement. It's a framework, very different, has to go to the UN. That's not what we have here. So clearly, they're going to take advantage. Not only Russia is going to take advantage of this, and we believe that they are, so is Hezbollah, and so is Iran, which is part of the whole problem that we have in Syria. We have to have a broader approach. The chemical weapons is a good thing, and I believed it was in our national security interest to secure them. That's great. We also have very sophisticated conventional weapons. So if we wanted a transition with Assad, we've just fired our last round, and we have taken our ability to negotiate a settlement from the White White House, and we've sent it with Russia to the United Nations. That's a dangerous place for us to be if you want an overall settlement in the problems.
If you agree with the congressman, and you said that you thought that the threat of the use of force certainly brought everyone to the table, and you believe that this agreement without the threat of the use of force, you know, leaves open the chances it might not be followed. So why not have the president come back to Congress and say, I need you to vote so I can continue to have the threat of the use of force?
Well, that would make sense if you were confident of the vote. And as the president said the other day, I don't think he could be confident of the vote. Right now, the Russians take that threat credibly and serious, and I think we should leave them with that idea, and I don't think we should undermine the negotiators who are sitting at our side of the table. But look, you know, people have been saying that Putin is this master chess player and ascribing all kinds of omniscience to our adversaries. I think Putin is more like a lawyer who's lost control of his client. That should have told Assad some time ago, look, you have the military edge on the battlefield now. Don't screw it up by doing something stupid. And what happened here was, I think, Russia lost control of its client and has as much interest now in working with the United States to try to make this framework work, to try to, you know, save the client from itself. So I don't think that we have this master strategist thinking 5 moves ahead. If they thought 5 moves ahead, they never would have gotten to the point where Syria was dragging us into this conflict.
Congressman Schiff, I want you to hold on a minute. Congressman Rogers, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that because I know you will. So stay with us, because when we return, we'll be joined by 2 of your House colleagues. One is a strong ally of the president who is skittish about Syrian intervention. The other, a fierce opponent of President Obama.